We have the motivational session right now, and we are very pleased to have with us Padma Bhushan, Mr. Pullela Gopichand, who is the Chief National Coach of the Indian Badminton team. Please welcome him with a very big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. At this stage, I'd like to invite Mr. Soham Mishra, Chairperson of FATA West Bengal, to kindly come on the dais and request him to kindly introduce Mr. Gopichand Pullela. A very, very warm welcome. Let's have a big round of applause.
Good afternoon, friends. We understand that a session after a hearty lunch is the most challenging for both the audience and the speaker. But we are fortunate to overcome this challenge by having amongst us Shri Pullela Gopichand, Chief National Coach, Indian Badminton Team. Pullela Gopichand is a former Indian badminton player. Currently, he is the Chief National Coach for the Indian Badminton Team and runs the Gopichand Badminton Academy. He has mentored champions, including the 2016 Rio Olympics silver medalist PV Sindhu and 2012 London Olympics bronze medalist Saina Nehwal, amongst others. After winning his first national badminton championship title in 1996, Gopichand won the title 5 times in a row. He won 2 golds and 1 silver medal at the Indian National Games in 1998. In 1996, he won gold in the SARC badminton tournament and defended the crown in the next games held at Colombo in 1997. At the 1998 Commonwealth Games, he won a silver medal in the team event and a bronze in men's singles. He won the All England Open Badminton Championships in 2001, becoming the second Indian to achieve this after Prakash Padukone. After retiring from playing, Gopichand founded the Gopichand Badminton Academy in 2008. The academy has produced several badminton players, including Saina Nehwal, who went on to win the bronze medal at the 2012 Olympics, and PV Sindhu, who won the silver medal at the 2016 Summer Olympics. Gopichand also served as the official Indian badminton team coach at the 2016 Rio Olympics. Pullela Gopichand has received both the Padma Shri in 2005 and the Padma Bhushan, India's third highest civilian award, in 2014. Friends, let's have a rising welcome to our motivational speaker, Shri Pullela Gopichand.
Thank you, Soham, and very good afternoon to all of you. I think they must have hurried the lunch for you because I have a flight to catch. Please excuse me for that. Well, standing here, I'm reminded of the year 2001, after I came back from the All England win. In my mind, I still remember those times when I was running near the near the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium. After my win, I came back in the night at around 11, and in the morning at 6:30, I was running on the road, thinking that the next few years I will be ruling Indian world badminton. That's the thought which I had, because in my journey of starting the sport and playing it, I started off in 1985. My father worked in a bank, so he kept moving from place to place. The first 3 years I was in Orissa, the next 3 I was in Chennai, and after that, that's better. For the next few years I was in Chennai, and then for a few years I was in coastal Andhra before we moved to Hyderabad. It's only by chance that I took up the sport, and I never knew that my journey in badminton would take this far. In fact, I only took up the sport because in the year 1985, that's when I started playing. Like everybody else in the country, I was also very inspired by the 1983 World Cup of cricket, and I was playing cricket. And somehow I was playing cricket and managed to break some window panes of neighbors. My neighbors complained to my parents. My mother was receiving continuous complaints, and she said, this guy is going to get us into trouble. Let us take him to the stadium. I went to the stadium to join for cricket. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, cricket admissions were full, and they said there's no admissions left. So my parents took me to the next sport, which was the most popular sport then, tennis. And years later, I came to know that we came out of the tennis court. When we went there, my parents thought they'll join, but on the way out, they saw too many cars parked outside. They said, this is not the right sport. Looks like a rich man's sport, so let's go and join something else. So literally, I went to the badminton court because it was empty. And that's how my journey in badminton had started. Imagine this, when I won the All England, one of the top newspapers in the country wrote that when I picked up the racket, I dreamt I'll be an All England champion. The truth was much further than that. The initial years and school, there were only two professions for Telugu people, if you know. There's only either you're an engineer or a doctor. And I was also on the same path. My father was a bank manager, so he knew about education. He thought it was the right thing. And all Telugu people thought only maths, physics, chemistry, or biology, physics, chemistry, two subjects which will get us an engineering seat or a medical seat. So I was also on the same path. Life was tough. My mom was tough. If I studied loudly for 1 hour between 4:30 in the morning and 5:30 in the morning, she would allow me to go to the stadium. And if I get a rank, at least in the top 20 in class, she would say, you can continue playing. These were the rules set because she knew that I loved the sport. And I would do anything for the sport. So it continued that way. I would study loudly for an hour, get to the stadium, managed to get 18th or 19th rank because I just studied enough to get to that. And barely managed to manage both education and sport. And that's how I moved from district. When I went for my first tournament, which was a district tournament, I realized that if I work harder than my competition, I would do well. So if they came in and ran 10 sprints, I would do 11. If they played for half an hour, I would play 35 minutes. If they lifted 10 kgs weight, I would lift a little more. To realize that if I worked harder than them, I would beat them. It so happened that it worked. I went from district to the state to realize that the same principle of hard work remained. If you work harder, you will get better. So I moved from state to the national and to the international, and the same principle continued. Parallelly, it was a time when I was also studying maths, physics, and chemistry. And to my luck, standards at home were pretty high. My brother went to IIT. So things were not very easy. I wrote my engineering exam, and luckily I failed. And I got this 1 year where they said you can play badminton, and if you win at the national level, then you can continue playing. If not, you will have to stop playing. This is what the condition was. Luckily that year, I won the junior nationals. I also played for the country. And more importantly, I got a job in Tata Steel. And that was the beginning of my badminton career, much further from the truth which the newspaper had reported. So this is how my entry or my cementing my place as a badminton player had started. Things were challenging because I remember after coming back here, I was reflecting on what things have been. Because today when we look at sport, we think of sport very differently. We look at sport, we are saying biomechanics, sports scientists, nutritionists, physiologists, psychologists, coaches, physios. This is what the talk happens. But when I look back at my journey in sport, things were very different. In the sense, I had to go through very basic challenges. You go to the stadium, watchman nahi aaya, andar gaya, current nahi hai, shuttle nahi hai, coach nahi hai. You go to the ground, शादी हुआ है, कोई stadium बंद है. You go to the pool, pool में पानी नहीं है. So these were the fundamental challenges. So when I won the All England, I was like, boss, if I can win the All England with that kind of a background and facility, maybe many others can. And that is truly what inspired me to take up coaching and also try to build infrastructure for the players to come up. And typically, one of the journeys, if I were to just put things in perspective, there's a lot of young people also in the crowd. For us to play for the country would mean that from Hyderabad we traveled by AP Express. That would take about 27 hours to come here. Second class in a train. You come here, stay in Paharganj 2-3 days, go to Chanikyapuri every day, visa, stamping, then go to Barman Lorry, Ashoka Hotel. I used to have Barman Lorry office. Get your ticketing done. And then by the time you reach the tournament, it was the achievement. The achievement was, by the time you reach, you were like, done, we've arrived, kind of a thing. So the typical joke among us was, although Prakash sir had won the All England in 1980, we never could imagine that we can reach that level. So we were always kind of, he is God, we can't do what he is God. But between 1980 and 1990, the standards of Indian badminton had actually dropped pretty drastically. So much so that the typical joke, and I remember this when we went out for our first tournament, we were living in this hotel called Emerald. All of us had lost in the first round. Imagine we would play with Indian shuttlecocks which are made in Calcutta or Jalandhar. And when we went abroad, and we would play in typically 2-court badminton halls. And when we went abroad, we used to play in those huge halls with air conditioning and ionic shuttles, which are the foreign shuttle then. And it would actually travel at different trajectory. So we would be like, half of us would be still traveling in the second class, good. In the mind, that's what's happening. We've eaten in some Kakeda Daba and National, and that's the food we were eating, and we would travel there. And typically it's like, एक कपड़ा खेलने का लेना है, 3-4 कपड़े कैजुअल के लेना है, क्योंकि खेलना तो एक ही दिन है. This is what typically the mindset was. So I remember that day when we were actually playing that tournament. After the first morning and afternoon, we had joined for dinner. 18 of us in that team. I was the youngest of that group. And everybody was like, kya hua? And they were like, morning show ya matinee, kis mein hara? So kisi ne first show tak aaya hi nahi tha. And all of us were sitting there, and some of them were like, the Chinese jumped so high, I couldn't see the shuttle. Some was like, तेरे को shuttle नहीं दिखा, मेरे को आदमी नहीं दिख रहा था, इतना चल रहा था. So I was the youngest of that group. And as a kid, I got up and said, क्या बोल रहे हो? हम जीत के दिखाएंगे, मैं जीत के दिखाऊंगा. Everybody pounced on me. Said, बच्चा है, बहुत उचक रहा है, साले जल्दी सीख जाएगा. And I walked out of that room that day saying that मैं जीत के दिखाऊंगा. And in fact, if there is something which I am proud of, it's the fact that I had that kid in me alive till the day I stopped playing, or he continues to be there today. And that enthusiasm is what I'm really proud of. It didn't come easily because a few years later, 91, this has happened. 92, 93, I was the best badminton player in the country. I was really playing well. But in 1994, I was playing the national games. I had reached the finals of the singles, which was supposed to be played in the evening. And in the morning, I was playing my double semi-finals. I was moving backwards, my partner was moving sideways. Both of us collided, and he landed on my leg, and I tore the anterior cruciate ligament of my left knee. And the knee is a very important joint, and the ACL is the major ligament of the knee. I tore it. I was really down for a long time. I was lucky. My father was posted in Delhi then. There's a nursing home called Segal here, and there's a doctor called Dr. Ashok Rajgopal. He did my surgery. A year later, I started to play back again, and it was a struggle for a year. I started to play well again. I beat the Olympic champion of 1992, Alan Budi Kusuma, and after a few wins, in 1996, I had another fall, this time at the World Championships in Scotland, and I had to come back for my second surgery. And again, I continued to play. In 96, I won few tournaments. I beat the Olympic champion of 1996, Paul-Eric Hoyle-Larsen, but then I had another fall this time in Bombay, and I had to come back for my third surgery on my left knee again in 1998. But luckily for me, between the years 1998 to 2001, I didn't have many major injuries, and that's how wherever I won my Commonwealth or the Asian Championship medal or the All England, that has come between those years of 1998 and 2001. So in my lifetime as a player, I learned a lot from the various coaches who I worked with, and also a lot of players whom I picked things up, but a lot of things from trial and error as well. So when I won the All England around that time, I was like, boss, I know what needs to be done. Physically, you need to be at this level. Psychologically, technically, tactically, strength-wise, this is what is needed for Indians to win at the highest level. And for me, at the back of my mind, it was always like, if I can win, many others can. And that was the beginning or the thought which came up to me at the All England. I had this formula which was there for me, but unfortunately I didn't have a body for me to use. The next year, post 2001, although I really wanted to play and win and I was desperate, I had 3 metatarsals broken on my right foot, and then I had a stress fracture on my right ankle. And finally, I had a knee surgery, which was an overuse injury of my right knee, which actually was taking the brunt of compensating for my left knee injuries. I finally had my right knee surgery in 2002, and I was slowly pushed into coaching. Every day I would go to the stadium to play. If my body was hurting, I would coach. If my body was not hurting, I would play. And eventually the days I played became lesser, and the days I coached became more. So much so that in 2003 and 4, I was coaching more than I was playing. And finally, in 2004, I won a tournament, and I beat some of the players whom I was coaching. The player in me wanted me to win, the coach in me wanted me to lose. And that night after winning that tournament, I felt miserable after winning. So I decided never to compete again and play in a tournament. And I switched to full-time coaching. Took a bunch of about 25 kids in Hyderabad, took them to this place called Gachibowli and started coaching. The oldest of them was the 2014 Commonwealth champion called Kashyap. He was about 15 years old. And in that group, we had people like Guru Saidat, Sai Praneeth. Saina was about 13, Sikki Reddy, and Sindhu was one of the youngest of them at 9. And out of that group of about 25, almost 10 of them have played top 20 in the world. And that's something I'm really happy about. So this has been my journey as a player. And I realized very quickly, and these were tough times, right? So infrastructure was not in my hands. very quickly I realized that if I had to take a holiday for Ramzan, for Diwali, for Christmas, for New Year, I'm not going to produce badminton players. So I needed infrastructure. So I had to build infrastructure. So I got this piece of land from the government but I had to raise funds for it. Somebody said, if you have an ATG exemption, you will get some funds. So I got an ATG exemption. Didn't get the funds enough. They said, no, not ATG, you need to get 100% exemption. I got 100% exemption, still didn't manage to raise enough funds. And after a few bad experiences, final straw was, I'll cut the long story short because I have a flight to catch. Please excuse me for that. The thing is that as a badminton player, as an All England champion, you kind of are, people want to meet you, take photographs with you. They're looking for you to be part of their events. But then when I started asking for funds, slowly you could see that people didn't want to take your calls. I would go to a meeting and the people would start leaving. Ye aa gaya, wapas puchega. And then whatever ego you had was completely done. The final straw was one of those days when I went to a certain CFO in Bombay, because the chairman of the company had said, we will support you. And the CFO made me wait for 3 days outside his glass cabin. He would call me every 2 hours. I would go at 9:30 in the morning, come back at 6 in the evening, buy clothes for the next day, and then stay back with the hope that they would sponsor. At the end of 3 full days, at the evening at around 6 o'clock, he calls me and says, Gopi, I think we've evaluated your proposal. I don't think badminton has the eyeballs to be a world sport. I don't think Indians can be champions in it. And the third thing he said was, I don't think great players can be great coaches. If you want some personal help and support, I will do it. But I don't think badminton deserves any more than this. I had tears in my eyes. He wanted me to sit and talk. I said, no, sir, thank you very much. I got up, walked out, went straight to the airport, took a flight, and landed home at 9:30. I remember that day. And I called my parents and wife. We live in a 1,000 yards house in Jubilee Hills in Hyderabad, which is a nice place. And I said, I can't run around anymore. Let's sell the house. Luckily that night they agreed. And the next day morning, we didn't have to sell the house, but we mortgaged the house, got a 3 crore loan on my house. And that's how the academy has come into existence in 2006. That decision that night was very, very critical. Post that, I went to call the Chief Minister for inauguration. And outside this, I met the Sports Minister, who was a friend of mine, but he was not well, so he was in an ICU for about 3 months, and then he came back after that. So I met him, we was chatting, and he said, Gopi, your land, what is happening? I said, sir, I've just come with this. I had this iPad. I showed him the pictures and said, we are building this. He says, what are you talking? I have this file, and she showed me a file where the file denoted that nothing was built. And they wanted to take the land back because they wanted to build service apartments there. Because now the land was prime in the last few years and the government had changed. And this was a Friday evening and I had to go to court, and we fought a court case for 6 years, and between 2008 to 2014, and that's how we were able to protect the land. In between, we also won a Commonwealth medal. We also won our first Asian Championship medal. We also won our first Olympic medal. And we also won many, many championships for the first time as a country. And I was doing well there. Afternoons I was doing construction, and evenings I was with the lawyer filing the court cases and reading. I've never read so much in my life as much as the court cases have made me read. But that's how the story has been. It has been a story of a lot of hard work, if you have to say it. But truly, I feel really blessed because although there have been a lot of people who've tried to pull me down, they've always been somebody who's really come out of the blue to help me as well. So I think today, when I look at my journey, I think it's been a journey of God's grace, because I don't think without that this whole thing would have been possible the way it has been, because it's been a dream. I get scared of thinking of reliving this another time, because those decisions were taken. It's scary how and why we did it. If I didn't become a badminton player, what would I have been? No clue, no plan B. If I would have not succeeded in my court cases and not succeeded in coaching, what would I have become? No clue. We had to do what we did, and I think great support from family, but also I think entirely it's been God's grace which has actually made this whole thing possible. For many of you, this might have sounded like a story of struggle, but to be honest, I have actually enjoyed each bit of it. And I feel truly, truly grateful to God for the experiences which He has given me. And also, for me, it's always been like to spend a life wearing shorts and t-shirts and going to work like this in the morning for all your life, I think is a dream which I think very, very few people can live. And I'm very, very happy that I'm privileged to live that dream. And that's the best thing of being a sports person, is not the money you get, it's not the fame you get, but the single kind of focus which actually gives you your life. And that for me has been the most important thing. It's been a life of gratitude, it's been involvement, it's passion, it's love. It's definitely not sacrifice, hard work and discipline, because those things seem like very dry words. But if you were to replace them with love, affection, involvement, passion, I think the whole journey changes. Yes, there are moments when there is grit and pride involved, because for us to compete against, because if I were to think that I have this background and I'm training to beat a Chinese guy or an English guy, it would have been impossible. But back then I come from a little bit of a rural background, so the mindset of mine would be like, "Ye अंग्रेजों ने हम पे 200 साल राज किया, इनसे तो नहीं हारना है." That's the kind of raw talk you would have. And I think when you actually have that kind of a talk, when your pride, your country's pride, your family's pride is at stake, इससे नहीं हारूंगा, इन लोगों से नहीं हारूंगा, I think then you punch higher than your weight category. And that's really been the story of how I look at my life's journey. And it's been fantastic. And I'm so happy to be here. Thank you very much. And I hope I could have spent more time, but I'm sure sometime next time I'll do that. Thank you very much. It's been a really pleasure. Thank you.
Truly inspiring, motivational speech by one of our India's iconic gems, and I think we are truly, truly proud of you, and we are very honored that you came here, and I'm truly amazed and really in awe of your humility and down to earth in spite of all your achievements. So ladies and gentlemen, let's have a huge round of applause once again. May I now invite Mr. Rishabh Sanghi and Ms. Rashmi Kale to please come on stage and felicitate Mr. Gopichand.